Happy Monday and welcome back. Have you ever gone down to the beach and done that slingshot where they pull you down and lock you in? A friend of mine said earlier today that this week is that part where we're pulling back, and then next week it's going to be just crazy and chaos. This week we've got one judge that's got a trial roster in front of him that is 11 cases. Hopefully most of those will end up pleading guilty. They'll get larger sentences if they do plead guilty at this point because it's made it to the trial roster. But you can't keep somebody from pleading guilty. If that happens, that will move a ton of cases. But they're really short trials. None of these are murders. It starts off with a kidnapping, and then we've got like a breach of trust, failure to stop for blue lights. So it's one of those that generally there's not as much on the line for failure to stop for blue light. The most you can serve is 3 years. So generally those sort of things plea, and then the judge will take into consideration it didn't take 2 days or a day and a half for a trial. But that will start today. We just got one trial court. We have been talking about structure and having a trial court and a plea court week 1, a trial court and a plea court week 2, and that really works for us. And we are looking a lot more like that in the rest of the year. But in February, next week, we got 4 judges. So it's going to be tough. We're going to have 2 murder trials starting next week in 2 different courtrooms, and a drug trial week, and then a plea term going on. So it's going to spread us thin. It's going to spread the public defender's office even thinner, and private attorneys. But we had 4 years of a restructuring that they figured out probably didn't work so well for Horry and Georgetown. So coming back to it, it's going to be a little bit of trial and error just to get back to where we were 2 years ago. And that's okay. I think February is a bad month, and maybe April, but not bad at all, and we'll be able to adjust and should be able to move quite a few cases. You're just not nearly as efficient when you're being dragged from one courtroom to the other, I don't think the judges are as efficient, nor the defense attorneys, but that's what we are served next week, and that's what we'll do with, and we'll make the most out of it. This week, for football fans, is the last week of NFL football. College football has been gone for a few weeks, and now it'll end with the Super Bowl on Sunday. It's a good time, a lot of parties, but I would caution you, and we always do this on New Year's Eve, on 4th of July, and on Superbowl Sunday. The police are out in force. They're going to have traffic checkpoints set up, and it's because as human natures, we notice patterns, and people tend to drink a lot more at Super Bowl parties. So just like we talked about for New Year's Eve, make sure that if you're having that party, that you have the conversation of who's going to be the designated driver, who's going to drive back and forth, how am I arriving, more importantly, how am I getting home, because there's going to be a lot of law enforcement out. They're going to be looking for impaired drivers, and that's a bad thing, to have to end up at the Stony Lonesome, have to post bond, have to get your picture taken. You could get fired from your job. All kind of bad things can happen. That above and beyond the criminal action, which is, going to jail for a few days for a DUI and losing your driver's license. All of those things are really, really big. Think about it. If for most of us, if we got a DUI, you could go back to that day and remember the blue lights and remember all of that if it was 15, 20 years ago. So it's a life-changing type event, and it's one that can easily be avoided. I want to just make sure that everybody has a great time, but everybody is safe in doing it, because we really don't want any accidents, and that's the worst part. Even above and beyond getting into a ticket with a couple of days in jail. If you were to get involved in an accident and somebody gets injured or, God forbid, loses their life, you've got that to live with. And, we were talking earlier today, Monday, it's extremely foggy. Anything like that, getting tied up with a text, getting tied up with fog, or especially if you're consuming alcohol, accidents happen, but they're more prone to happen if there's a variable in there like alcohol. So be careful of that. Make sure that you plan ahead. It's pretty easy to do now with Uber and Lyft and cabs and designated drivers. Make sure that that this is an enjoyable weekend, and then it's on from there into the rest of February. Very soon in February, we're going to Washington to meet with our state Senate and our state House members like Russell Fry and Mr. Clyburn, and I think we got a meeting with Senator Graham. But what we're working on is things that will help Horry County, that the state and federal government can collaborate on, and keep your South Carolina taxes down. It may be grants. A lot of the victim services stuff has been funded by VOCA grants. That is federal grants, and those have been being cut. I'm not just saying by in the last few years it's not cutting 10% or 8% or anything like that. I'm talking about 50% cuts to VOCA grants, and in my opinion, the very reason for government, first and foremost, is to protect its citizens. And that's what I think the victim grants are all about. So we're going to ask them to do that. We're going to ask the feds to collaborate a little bit more on what I call pressure pot type cooking, where they would be here working in the background on bigger cases for longer periods of time while your state and locals are making the arrests that they normally would make. So those people are already here. We just we really want to push them to be out working in the background and making these cases so that you and I are safer as we go forward, especially with gang type cases and organized crime. That's where the federal government can really do a lot more help, and to take care of victim services. So there's a lot going on for February, more than just Valentine's Day and Super Bowls. A lot to do with law enforcement. So stay safe, and we'll be back next week to update you on this trial roster and the beginning of a really hectic term of court.